This is Celeste, and I'm outside at the Works Bakery and Cafe right across the street from One City Center. There you go, the rock and roll blimp. And I come over here like once a week and I get their huevos hamcheros with sausage instead of ham. And you know, I've kind of gotten to know some of the people who work here, and I've noticed that a couple employees had a semicolon tattoo. So I went online to see what that meant, and I thought I would just ask about it. So this is Ross. Ross, thanks for sharing your story with us.
Absolutely, no problem, no problem.
So why do you have your semicolon tattoo?
My entire life, my family and I have been dedicated to spreading awareness and just helping the general public with suicide prevention, awareness for mental illness, and all that such. My mother works for the National Alliance Against Mental Illness. So it's always absolutely.
You guys do a big walk every year.
Yeah, absolutely. And she's a teacher for them, so she her essentially, since she's retired, she's just kind of geared her life towards helping people in need, and it's been right up my alley. I've struggled with depression and suicidal thoughts and tendencies for a long time, so for me personally it also kind of rung a good note, I guess, in all senses of saying good note.
What does the semicolon represent?
So I know a lot of people, it kind of represents something specifically for them individually, but for me it's really about the project itself, with suicide awareness, prevention, trying to get all the resources we can out there for people that do need help and that struggle with things on a day-to-day basis. So it's kind of my way of helping the world become aware, something little, ask questions. People ask me about it all the time, and it's something that's very, very important. And
an invitation to talk about
absolutely,
it.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
The semicolon in writing represents that the author isn't done talking about what it is they're talking about.
They could have ended their sentence,
They could have ended
didn't.
the sentence, but they didn't.
Yes, and that's the whole thing with the Semicolon project, like that really hit me on a level with that, where they could have ended their sentence, but they didn't. Where, I mean, that's what it's about. We go through, we have a beautiful world that we live in, but so many people go through struggles every day, and so many people who I've known have been in that position where they could have ended their sentence, and thankfully in one way or another they're still with us. And then on the flip side, I have had people who have passed because of that, and it's never something that I think anybody should have to go through. It's a very terrible feeling to feel like you're alone and stuck, and I think suicide awareness and prevention is probably one of the things that we can do to really, really help our community, solely just help our community.
How do people get involved with the Semicolon project, or with just suicide prevention here locally in Portland?
I would absolutely recommend going to NAMI. My mom is constantly giving me flyers, just kind of, hey, come to our class, check it out. They gear a lot of their help towards family members of those who struggle with mental illness, so I think that's very important too, because it's not just the person struggling with it, it's how do we handle this situation, how do we approach somebody who is struggling through depression or mental illness, because it is a sensitive thing for the person going through it. So I think that is probably one of the best things you can do, to help people, is educate yourself on appropriate terminology, put yourself out there in the community. Even things as little as just volunteering, I think, are amazing, and they can go a really long way. She's always asking me to volunteer, and I do whenever I can, when I get up to Brunswick and her way. But I think education is a very, very important thing, and just general awareness of your surroundings. If somebody's going through something, if you see somebody on the street who might be struggling, ask them. Generally, if you ask somebody, are you doing okay today, they're going to respond well, and I think that's really important, because sometimes it's the strangers that have asked me if I'm doing okay that have really gone a long way, And
how are you today, Ross?
Oh, I'm doing great today, actually. Yeah, I'm doing great. I had a very good support system. I've had a lot of family and a lot of friends that have kind of picked me up and tied my shoes for me again, and kind of set me on the right path. So I'm very lucky to, have worked through my depression and not killed myself, I guess, so to speak. I think one of the things that my mom and I have been talking about a lot is the terminology with it for they're kind of shying away from committing suicide because that implies that you've committed a crime, and suicide isn't
I
a
see what you're
crime.
saying. Yeah.
You know, it's something that is a very, very serious struggle, and it's, you know, emotionally trying for people that are going through it. So I think a lot of the terminology, and I'm still, of course, correcting myself here and there since I'm so used to certain words, but, you know, little things like committing suicide, you don't commit a crime. That's not a crime, you know. Being hurt is not a crime. And I think that's very important, is nobody should be faulted for going through depression or anything like that, because it's not your fault. You know, it's not your fault. And I think that's one of the biggest things, is people, and myself, you know, included in that, people tend to believe it's their fault that they're going through things, and that's not fair. So, you know, for the general public to just be educated about it.
That it is an illness.
Yeah, absolutely.
Same as any other physical illness that you can see.
Absolutely,
I think
yeah.
that's why mental illness is so hard for people to accept.
Yeah, just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there.
Absolutely.
And sometimes the people that seem to be the most okay are the people going through the most struggle.
And it's the hardest to diagnose as well, because
Absolutely.
the symptoms are so different from person to person.
Absolutely, yeah. Somebody, you know, with depression could be, you know, it could be portrayed in a completely different way than somebody else with depression. And whereas it's the same illness, it's not the same for everybody chemically. It's a completely, I guess, sporadic illness in a way. But I think education is extraordinarily important for that. You know, the more we educate, the more people like you go around and ask these questions and care to ask, I think that is one of the greatest things that we're doing in this community. And just on a day-to-day basis, from the people coming in to get sandwiches, you know, asking me about my Semicolon, another one of our employees has it, and we get asked all the time about it, and it's great, because then people go home, you know, oh, Semicolon project, what's this?
Yes.
And, you know, it's the small steps that I think lead to great steps.
Thank you so much for taking time to share your story with us today.
No problem. Absolutely. Thank you for coming by. I appreciate it. It's